Wow. All right. So you've been following the news about this crazy winter storm, right? I mean, hitting the South. It's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We're talking record-breaking snowfall in places that barely ever see a single flake.
I know.
Let's unpack what's happening here and why it's so unusual.
Sounds good.
We're talking like 170 million people impacted by this thing. States of emergency declared. Travel is totally messed up.
Yeah.
Over 1,500 flights canceled.
You seen those pictures?
I am. Oh, and get this, Florida's all-time snowfall record. Gone. Just shattered.
Wow, Florida.
I know. So what on earth is going on here?
Well, usually, the South has pretty mild winters. Humid. Not exactly snowstorm territory, right?
Right.
But this storm system, it's different. We've got this Arctic air mass that's just slammed right into warm, moist air from the Gulf.
Oh, I see.
And that clash, it
Right.
fuels these super intense snowstorms, conditions you just don't expect to see in this region.
And, it's not just about the wow factor of snow in the South.
Yeah.
The human impact here, it's serious. We're hearing about fatalities already in Texas
Oh,
and in Georgia.
it's awful.
Imagine those first responders trying to reach people who need help, having to get through all that heavy snow and ice.
Right. It's not what they're used to.
Not at all. And then on top of that, you've got power outages everywhere.
Yeah, we're seeing reports of people huddled up, just trying to stay warm.
I can't imagine.
They can't cook. Some can't even keep their pipes from freezing. It's a tough situation. And it shows you how important it is to be prepared, especially in a place where this kind of weather is so rare.
Totally. So let's get to this. Blizzard warning on the Gulf Coast.
It's nuts.
We talked about what makes a blizzard, right? Those crazy high winds. Visibility. Forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, having a hurricane,
Mm.
but in Alaska.
That's one way to put it.
Historically speaking, what makes this event so significant?
I'll tell you. Blizzards along the Gulf Coast. Practically unheard of. This is not just unusual. It's something meteorologists will be studying for years to understand what happened here.
It kind of puts those 5,200 canceled flights into perspective, doesn't it?
Oh,
Travel's totally shut down. You have to wonder how folks on the ground are coping.
yeah, it's tough.
So how did this storm even form? The science behind it, what happened?
All right, so picture this. You've got the jet stream. It's like a river of air, way up high, and it usually steers weather systems. Pretty predictably, right?
Okay, I'm picturing it.
But in this case, that river dipped way south, and that brought that Arctic blast right down to the South's doorstep. Bad timing. At the same time, there's this big area of low pressure over the Gulf of Mexico. It's like a pump for moisture,
I see, yeah.
And those two things together, that's what created this monster storm. Powerful and totally unusual.
Wild. And here's the thing, even within the affected areas, it's not all the same.
Right.
You've got blizzard warnings going off in some places, and then you look at a place like Seguin, Texas, clear skies. But they're under a cold weather advisory.
Interesting.
What does that actually mean for people in Seguin?
Well, a cold weather advisory, it means those temperatures are dangerously low, even if there's no blizzard going on.
Oh, okay.
Risk of hypothermia, frostbite. It's a different level of concern than a full-blown blizzard, sure.
Right.
But it still means you got to take precautions, dress warm, stay inside if you can.
Makes sense.
So yeah, it's different, but it's still serious.
It reminds us that this storm is affecting a huge area.
Yeah.
And it's not over, right? What about those long-term impacts? Especially for places that aren't used to all this heavy snow and ice.
That's a great point. Think about it. Roads, power lines, they're not built to handle that kind of weight. You're going to see damage.
Makes sense.
And there's the economic side of things. Businesses have to shut down. That hurts. Emergency services, totally stretched thin. This storm is really showing us that even in places where harsh winters are rare, climate adaptation, it's got to be on the radar.
This storm has been something else. Record snowfall, blizzards where you'd least expect them. The impact on people's lives is, well, it's huge. It really shows you the power of nature, doesn't it?
It does, and it raises some interesting questions, too.
Like what?
Well, even with a warming planet, we're seeing these extreme winter events. So it makes you think, right? How is climate change affecting weather patterns in these complex ways?
Yeah, it makes you think.
And it makes you think about how we can be more prepared for these kinds of events in the future.
For sure.
Not just infrastructure, but individual preparedness, too.
Yeah, definitely food for thought.
Absolutely.
Thanks for breaking it all down.
No problem.
We'll have to keep an eye on how this all develops, that's for sure.
For sure.